Alright guys, welcome back to another episode, and this one's special because I think this will be a conversation ongoing for a while. It's about what we expect for the next Final Fantasy game, which would be 16, which is insane because you started playing with 6 or 3 or 4.
The first one I really played was 7, actually.
7, yeah, me too. So we're getting close to almost 10 installments. So 16's the next one, and it's just like, 15's wrapping up. It's stretching up, and then we've got probably 16 can't be too far away.
Just like 10 years.
Yeah, right.
8,
hopefully not.
9
Yeah.
years, maybe.
So there's a lot of speculation as to who's making it. What's it going to be? Like, what direction are they going? I'm talking more about the individuals within the company.
Oh.
Yeah, like stuff.
Specificity.
Yeah. So, a lot of people have been chatting, because, it's about, I think we should see it pretty soon, frankly. Because we don't have... You've always have had some sort of idea of what the next Final Fantasy game is, and we don't right now. And I think a lot of that's due to Remake and... 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3, so Square's got a lot in the stocking.
Because I think they're also trying to not announce things too early.
Right.
And I hope that they do. I could stand to wait a little while and then them say, hey, we have 16 and it's coming out in like a year.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That would be great
awesome
if they did that, because they could do that.
They could.
Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming, and then Remake Part 2 will be right after that. So they have a lot to keep the fans happy with, to get them excited about. So why not wait? But I would still think that they would announce it maybe before the remake comes out, just to get more people excited about the brand and everything. So, I mean, that would, I guess, be kind of a time frame for maybe 2020. So we would get Kingdom Hearts this year, 2019 Remake Part 1, and 2020 16 in the most optimistic sense, right?
Very optimistic.
Wouldn't that make sense?
It would.
And if that happened, wouldn't we all be very happy?
Of course we would.
Yeah, right?
It does make business sense. One killer IP for each financial year.
For sure. Do it like Star Wars, y'all. So, yeah.
But would they do 2 Final Fantasies in a row? Would they do Remake and then the following year be 16? Or would they...
I think it would be... honestly, that would make sense. Or they could do Remake Part 2 and then release it after that.
I kind of see that being... I kind of see that happening. Like, maybe you get a little bit of a preview of 16 in 2020, 2021, 7 Part 2 comes out, and then maybe you get...
2022.
A year later.
What year is it?
Yeah.
How many years?
That's right. So that's 5 years. But I feel I think exactly what Harrison was saying. They want to shake their reputation for taking forever, and it's kind of unfair because you can look at those games and you can be like, oh my god, there's so much work put into them, but they gotta keep it going, and hopefully now that consoles are kind of like PCs now, that they don't have to reformat engines. They can take an engine they've been working on and make it better just for PS5 or whatever console comes next.
So I think, it's 16 is not going to come out for the 4, right?
No, I would say 5 for sure.
Yeah,
I would say almost certain.
I would agree.
Yeah. Because it feels
they
like that's kind of the
say
trend
something
now.
by now. I feel like if it's going to...
For sure, yeah.
Because, we're guessing PS5 2019, 2020, right?
Yeah,
so I totally agree with that. And then they say Tabata's game, which is supposed to be he's always talked about Breath of the Wild, and obviously 15 is open world. So I would suspect that his new IP, which is supposed to be a PS5 game, might be the 2020 release, because they've said they've been working on it while updating 15. So that could be the 2020 game, then 2021 Remake 2, then 2022's 16. Whew. So, but
hold on to your butts.
To get into the woods a little bit, so Tabata's taken the open world direction. So maybe 16 could be going back in a more, I don't want to say linear, but at least back in that direction a little bit. Kind of what they suggested 7's going to be like, kind of like 12, where you have these big zones that kind of interconnect, so they can make the, things more detailed up close. But because they said they're using the engine for 15 for the PS5 IP. It's just going to be all the graphics will be turned up to max. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, if they could, like, I don't know. You all know I like Breath of the Wild. But if they could, I mean, if they honestly could go back to a linear way like they had with like 9 and 7, because even though that they were linear, I never felt like it was super linear. Yeah. Like I don't know.
I wouldn't describe 7 as particularly linear.
No, I mean you kind of had like it's kind of like
it's linear in the way those old school RPGs are, like
because it does open
only
up
so much,
and it's abstract just enough, and they give enough of a playground between areas to do something.
No, I agree. Right. Like so, I'm just saying,
and I feel like 10 was linear too, but they masked it very well because they gave you a lot of stuff.
But they're definitely not open world.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
What, like if they could somehow do that with it not feeling like a linear game, because I felt like 13 was probably too linear.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
And then like if they could just somehow find that
maybe
magic.
Now they have the hardware
magic. I feel like
if it's a PS5 game, which it probably will be, I think the hardware is finally there where you can easily do all the world map stuff you could do on PS1 and have it be seamless, with that kind of hardware.
That would be that would be an interesting.
That would be ideal.
Yeah.
So I mean, but maybe that's an idea. But I feel like we've talked about how 15 and going open world, is that right for a franchise that prioritizes narrative? And I don't really think it is personally. So, but I want something where they can kind of do a linear story portion for an hour or two, and then give you a playground, like give you a little open world chunk. To go and side quests and stuff with, and then continue back on the story path. And 15 being really open from the beginning, you could like veer off the narrative for so long that you kind of forget about it. So, and I didn't like that. I like the story is very important to me, and I think it needs to keep its momentum and be interesting, and keep you involved with the characters. So, like
it's nice having the options of doing separate things. But when it actually takes you away from the story and you're doing so much side questing that you come back to the game and you're like, wait, what was I doing?
Yeah, because it works great in Zelda. Yeah. Because Zelda, it has story elements, but it's not a story driven game. You know
exactly.
So with Final Fantasy, like fans have expectation of a good story.
I feel like there's one game that really kind of married the open world with a linear plot momentum, and that was Witcher 3. Mm-hmm. Like, Witcher 3, I mean, you set out... Neither of you play Witcher 3, right? Or
no, but I've only heard good things.
So, I mean, Witcher 3 begins, you get kind of you have a quest, right? You have a goal in the game, which never really... Like, your goal at the beginning of the game is sort of what you end up doing at the very end of the game. Like, it's your overarching goal. But there's so many very well-developed, fleshed-out side quests that really sort of... I wouldn't even call side quests. They're like they're world building.
Are they like subplots?
Subplots is a great way of describing it. But they build the world, and they're sort of sub stories unto themselves, subplots. But that game, unlike a Final Fantasy game, is like you never start a Final Fantasy game knowing like what your overall mission is or what your
that develops in the story later on.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a different animal there, but Witcher 3 I think is probably a hallmark in terms of games that really kept the plot momentum going in an open world game. So unlike any other game in that genre that I've played.
How much story is like? I mean, I'm thinking. Like Metal Gear and Final Fantasy and like Xenoblade,
the beauty does Witcher have the same level?
The same level of like
it does, story. It does, and it doesn't, and I'll explain. Like Witcher sort of has these bestiaries and stories and notes that you can immerse yourself in if you want, or you can completely avoid if you don't want.
Like Resident Evil notes,
sort of, but sort of dialed up to 11.
Okay.
So you could definitely speed through the game and just seek out Ciri, just do all the main story missions and all that, and get through the game and ignore everything else. But there's a wealth of other things out there that they give you insight into certain characters, they give you insight into certain places, that build the world.
So do you think
really
that if Final Fantasy went with that Witcher kind of method formula, they could still keep the open world?
I think
or do you think
might
it would
be a
serve
way,
that franchise?
I think there might be a way to do that. I can't think of a way to do that, but part of the reason it works for The Witcher is you're a one-person party, you're a mercenary.
The mercenary subplot makes a lot of sense. In 15, they're like, you gotta get to the wedding. Your kingdom's destroyed.
Exactly.
Oh, let's go catch some frogs.
Yeah. Exactly. Like
Whereas Witcher, it's just like you're killing people for money, right?
It feels weird going off the beaten path in Final Fantasy 15 because it weakens the urgency of the plot.
And that's what is not, I don't think Final Fantasy is about. Like, you gotta keep the plot momentum.
Exactly. In Witcher, it makes sense because you're a mercenary and you have to take these odd jobs to reach your ultimate goal of, doing what you need to do. So it sort of syncs up with the character, it syncs up with the world, and it all kind of connects in a way that is seamless and really makes the game overall work better. But for Final Fantasy and the makeup of those games, I don't really know how you make an open world version of that work really well. And I think that's sort of where a lot of the divisiveness of 15 came to light.
Oh, for sure. But, that's the most divisive topic, I think.
I think that there's probably a way to do that for Final Fantasy, but smarter people than me, I know, are grappling with that.
Shinji Hashimoto had a quote about 16, and he said that we're excited that 15 brought the series, back into popularity, but expect 16 to be a totally different direction, and he says he wants to surprise the fans. So what does that mean? Like, to me, it says that they probably need to go a little bit away from the open world. Like, they gotta, maybe not abandon an action combat system, but bring it back a bit more towards the active time battle system. So, these have got to be really hard decisions for them, and not let alone, these are just like core mechanics, and then you've got like the whole story, the characters, and playing it all out. And like all the Final Fantasy games, well, most of them, they work on them for a while, and 6 months to a year in, they start over. It's like, nope, it's not working. They did that for 10. So,
and they're on the bleeding edge of that. Like, there's not a lot of case studies out there for like open world games that are really well known or well regarded for their plot or their storyline.
And aren't kind of open world games running their welcome? Do you think, as a genre?
I would
like, just like any
so.
genre, Call of Duty had its phase.
No, I think you're, because I also remember, like, I thought GTA was like amazing, and then I remember when I was in college and my friend got, there was an Xbox version of like GTA, and it was just like, when I was playing, I was like, this is
Saints
just
Row.
like Saints Row. Yeah. And then like, playing that, I was like, this is just like GTA. And I remember playing other games, I'm like, this is just like GTA, and there's all these big open world things. And I mean, I haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn, and I think that's more open. And I like Breath of the Wild. Obviously, that was open, but it wasn't the same. It was similar to GTA, and like you could just plow through story and get to the end if you wanted to. But if you really wanted to take in the world, you had to do like you did side quests. But like I do wonder how they can marry all of that with like a Final Fantasy, because Final Fantasy, when I first started playing it, it's like they are so story and like so much like cutscenes and things like that, and it's weird trying to get good cutscenes into an open world game because you have to keep the player involved with it. And I think that GTA 5 did a pretty good job with that, but it's like it's still not on the same level as like a Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I like the stories in GTA games they're not bad, but they're not renowned either.
No,
I think honestly the difference is that GTA games are sort of light and fluffy in terms of the plot. Like there's really like you don't take
really
it
easy for so many
seriously.
people.
Oh, for sure. There isn't some ethereal, cryptic messaging and plot and lore.
Yeah, so exactly. Like your feeling about the story of GTA 5 isn't really based on the urgency or the momentum of the story. It all kind of unfolds at whatever pace you really feel it needs to, and it works equally well, whether you tear through it in 5 hours or you take 20 hours to complete the main campaign.
So
Whereas, Final Fantasy, like the pacing of it, I think is so much more important, and the momentum of it is so much more important. So I think where they struggle is how do you balance the desire to explore the open world with the necessity of keeping the plot moving.
That's why I think they should do it in chunks, Like you have like a linear portion and then you have the playground for a little while and then you continue with the story because I don't know, it's tough because I feel with the remake, Midgar is going to be very, very linear. I mean, you'll be able to explore like Wall Market and Sector 7 and all that stuff for like these little hubs, but like this, I feel like that's really going to be, linear for the most part. And I'm excited to see it because, Kitase and Nomura are doing it, who have been doing it for a long time. So speaking of the figureheads, are the elite quarterbacks at Square, like who could be directing it? Because a lot of people say, oh, they're doing 7 remake and they're doing 16 at the same time, which I think is unlikely with how ambitious 7 remake is.
What's Sakaguchi doing these days?
He has his own company, Mistwalker, but you see every once in a while people see him walking into that Square building, and he goes to their events, he goes to their concerts. Like he had a falling out when he got fired, and he didn't involve himself at all. And like he even trashed Final Fantasy XII because he said that like, yeah, that's what you get for firing me and for getting rid of Matsuno. But he might be involved in something. Like honestly, I would love to have Sakaguchi collaborate on like one more classic style Final Fantasy game.
You get Sakaguchi, Amano, Matsu.
Yeah. If you get like the original team again, I mean that's a dream. I'll leave it at that. But I hope that they do something like that one day because Uematsu contributes here and there. And, they're all kind of involved, but are they going to take on a big project that takes 4 or 5 years? Who knows?
Well, I mean, the godfathers of the series.
They are the godfathers, and I think they might want one more stab at it before it's gone, because their relationship with the company is a lot better than it used to be. But I would say no to Kitase and Nomura making 16, because they're certainly tied up with 7 Remake, which kind of brings me back to the Matsuno point, who did Tactics, Vagrant Story, Final Fantasy 12, and then got let go. It seems like that team, who's been working on 14 a little bit, that a lot of those figureheads from 14 have been pulled on an unknown project. So it could be more in that 12 Tactics direction, or it could be something like Agni's Philosophy, which was that tech demo they released a few years ago. Or it's in all probability it would be something completely different. But it's and then there's one key figurehead at Square who's been missing for nearly a decade, and that's Hiroyuki Ito, who co-directed 6 and designed the active time battle system, and he also directed 9, and he also hopped on board and did 12 after Matsuno left. So he's doing something, right? He still works there. It's confirmed he works there, and I don't think they would have one of their all-star directors just sit back doing nothing.
Just hanging out.
Well, maybe how 15 or Versus took 8 or 9 years. He's been developing his thing for forever.
Sipping Mai Tais.
Now that's a way to work.
That's the dream.
But I know Harrison was mentioning he really likes the 9 aesthetic. And I would love to see that again.
I like the characters, and I really like 9, and I think that if they went back to something similar to it, that would be awesome. Because I think it would also be good because they just did 15, which is more reality based. Obviously, there's fantasy involved in it, but if they kind of went more,
they need to go 9, more fantasy. 12, they need to go more.
Or
even 10.
You're looking for more of the fantasy, steampunk vibe.
Yeah. Well, that would be steampunk.
I think that'd be really cool if they took it back to that, because this one seems so much more modern. Mm-hmm. And if they went a little bit more,
I honestly hope they go hyper fantasy. I want them to go kind of, I want the pendulum to swing all the way back from 15 to something like the old school Final Fantasies. We're talking about high fantasy and low reality. We coined it, and all. Just all these different kind of aesthetics and art directions you can take the series in. I would love to see a 9, but I feel like that the franchise of Final Fantasy has become much more serious and darker in a sense that I think it would be risky for them to go back in the 9 direction, which has a loyal following. It's one of my favorites, but it was not one of the top sellers.
No.
And so that kind of concerns me a little bit about going in that direction. But, like, maybe if they have these 14 people team up with Ito, it would be more of like maybe bridge the gap between 12 and 9. So that'd be cool.
I mean, because you're saying you wanted to go hyper fantasy, and I mean,
like more in that direction.
Yeah, and I feel like if they just move it a little, like not even a little, if they move it a good amount, like more fantastical than 15, that would be pretty cool because it's just also something different, so you're keeping it kind of fresh.
Yeah.
For people, because like you were saying earlier, a lot of people are saying 15 is their favorite Final Fantasy game, but that's just because it's the only game that they've played.
Yeah.
So if these people who've only played 15 get to play 16 and it's more like fantastical, that would be interesting because they're getting something that they haven't experienced either. So they're still keeping it like new and different for people who are just joining, but also it can be reminiscent for people who've been playing for a while.
Yeah, exactly. I think we can all agree that 16 won't be anything like 15.
Yeah, like it, but these are big decisions to make, like the battle system. Will they do open world? How much more story focused would it be? I would imagine yes, because a lot of people, I think that was one of the biggest complaints. It's just, it's kind of all conjecture from here because we don't really know what direction it's going in. But Final Fantasy has a great reputation for totally starting from scratch. And I know it's kind of tempting for them to be like, oh my god, 15 sold so well, we're making all this money, for them to go in that direction still. But I think it would severely damage their reputation if they did pretty much like a 15-2, pretty much. So, and they made that decision with 7. They could have made a 7-2, but they went with 8. And that that came with its controversy for the time. I think just because it wasn't 7. So, but it would be cool. There's some ideas they haven't done. 10's the more, I guess tropical fantasy, more Eastern flair. Then 6 and 7 are kind of that steampunk kind of theme, and 8 was realism, 9 was very fantastical, 12 was more, medievalish,
dusty.
13 was sci-fi. Like what? I don't know what. It feels like they've checked all the boxes. It's got to be so hard for them to like make it seem fresh.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thought like that Agnes.
Trailer Velocity,
yeah, that was like that, or tech demo, whatever you want to call it. It was like, I thought that was cool because it was like Middle Eastern, and that's like,
it seemed fresh,
like we're checking all we haven't done Middle Eastern.
That does seem sort of consistent with what the vibe of 15 was, though. Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I felt like it had the realism. I mean, I do think we're gonna get a mostly human cast, if not all, from here on out. I feel like we're gonna see full proportioned humans.
That made it like
like that. It's gonna be interesting to see how they do Kate Sith in the remake. Yeah. Luckily, they don't have to worry about that until the second one, probably. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Red 13 though.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
I think it's like I feel like watching that tech demo though. Like the thing that kind of made it seem more modern was that they had AK-47s or they had guns.
Yeah.
And but there was still like the woman and like the wizard dude
drinking the Coca-Cola bottle.
Like it was like they kind of hit the modern, but with like, but it was still very fantastic. Like because her whole outfit was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it seemed more like old school than like high fashion, but it was high fashion. I don't like.
It was more Final Fantasy
Project
reality, but it's just like
Yeah.
little bits of reality, like the gun, the bottle.
For sure, and like the location looked like it could be in this world until they showed the gigantic like sci-fi skyscraper, which is crazy. So really, like what, like I was saying about how story is important. I'm just like wondering like what kind of story they should do, because I feel like in recent memory there's 13 where you're branded to die. It's like you've learned your lifespan and you got to do something about it before you die. And then in 15, it's more about, you know, a coming of age story, like a king taking his throne. So that, you know, those have got to be swept to the side. So, I honestly kind of want a classic Final Fantasy game where you pick up a new character along the journey, and there's like a very, you know, vast array of different, you know, types of characters. I'd like for that because, you know, with 15, you've had the whole party from the beginning pretty much, and 13, they all had something in common. So it'd be interesting to see if they could do that again.
Like, as you're talking about, the more and more I kind of want it to be like 9.
Yeah, because 9 is like that. 9 is where a bunch you've just run into a lot of people on your journey, and they join you.
You run into a lot of people, and like you're just like this guy, and like trying to save the princess,
and he's in Sedaine. He's a happy main character.
Shut up.
A lot of what? No,
I thought you were gonna be like a lot like Zelda.
How is that anything like Zelda?
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say a lot of RPGs are like that. Like you roll into a town and you know some NPC starts talking, and then he has like a little art box portrait. Like, oh well, I guess that's my new team member.
He's always the young and positive, like whippersnapper male character in RPGs.
He can beat all the knights in the kingdom. Well, that's my guy.
And Sedaine was that, and like you had Locke in 6 who was like that, and then like in 7 it was weird because Cloud was kind of the first kind of, you know, whatever.
Whatever.
Whatever kind of character until Squall, who is the ultimate whatever. Yeah. ... So I would think that they would probably need to go with a female protagonist because the whole cast was male.
Wasn't that 13?
15?
13 had a
13 did,
female protagonist.
but I think like 10, like Yuno was so popular and Lightning was very popular. So it would make sense after all the bros being together that there would be more prominent female characters.
It was a very bro-y game.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Bro-y.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, if it's not the main character that's a female, I would assume
be prominent.
Like the next
probably another love
character.
Story.
That's another thing.
15 wasn't really a love. I mean, there was sort of a love story.
They haven't had a traditional love story since 10.
Oh, there was a love story since 15.
Oh, there was a love story.
Well, camping.
We could
Promptus. Yeah.
Oh, I've got a new recipe. For love.
So, like, I mean, they did the coming of age story, like, and there's, you know, are they going to come into this one in media res where it's like in the middle of the action? Because 15 was a slow burn, kind of like 8, where it builds up. 13 drops you in the middle of action.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea that I hadn't considered, was jumping into the plot like sort of at the halfway point. And then the game paces itself by proceeding through the plot, but also giving you these sort of like back chapters to fill in and make. That's a really interesting idea. I like that a lot. They could wing it and try to do like a time travel thing. I think that would be maybe way off the beaten path for the franchise. It's not really a Final Fantasy.
It's not. Yeah, they did it with 13 too, so I guess that wasn't too long ago. But yeah, these are hard decisions. Like I would expect that the character designer would be Yoshida, who did Nier and 12 and Tactics, or because Nomura is going to be all over Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. I feel like they will need a new style. Right, Harrison?
Yeah, I'm just like,
as we're talking about,
I'm laughing because it's like I'm thinking about all the things that we're saying, and it's just like, yeah, just do that. Just make good games.
But maybe do that other thing.
But you know, but do the different thing, but keep it the same way.
Yeah.
But new art
it's hard.
style.
It's
Why don't you just make a good game?
Because like
make a good game.
Like it's like doing it's got to be really hard.
Just make a fantastic game that none of us get upset about.
Yeah,
just
right.
Make
Nobody.
it good.
Yeah.
Just make it good.
It has to just be good.
If there's
if
there's anything guaranteed about Final Fantasy, it's going to be divisive and there will be cutscenes probably.
Spiky hair.
Yeah. Because, like, I remember with 13, they were like, oh my god, too many cutscenes. 15, oh my god, not enough cutscenes. I'm just like, what do you want? What do you want?
Yeah, everybody's going to complain about something. So.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. But you know what? I think 16 Square's got so much money in the bank. They can do this stuff. I feel like now they hopefully can pivot back to the late 90s Squaresoft age where they were also very profitable and launching all these games. And I hope that the end of the decade brings that. So but yeah, I'm not counting on this for the end of the decade. It'll definitely be 2020, 2021, 2022.
We'll see you in 10 years.
See you in 10 years. All right. Speculate away, y'all. Leave some comments below.
Give
Make
us
fun
a
of Harrison's dorky glasses.
Yeah, they're dumb.
Yeah, and then we'll talk to you later. Peace. Yeah. Yay. Thanks, guys. Oh, yeah, and Harrison did this beautiful piece of artwork for me for my birthday. He said
we ended
chocolate.
the episode.
We already ended it, Thomas.
Well,
It's over.
Well,
thanks,
welcome
Harrison.
back.
Thanks, Harrison.
One
welcome.
final thought.